First of all, thank you very much, everyone, for taking time to attend this session today. My name is Simone, and I represent Aviation Australia. I'm the sales manager for both the domestic and international products. Today, I will be reviewing with you the offer for the aircraft maintenance engineering program, which is unique to Aviation Australia and to Australia as well. So a bit of an introduction to Aviation Australia. First of all, the Registered Training Organisation was established by the Queensland Government in 2001 to support the development of the aviation and the aerospace industries. As per today, Aviation Australia is the only registered training organisation that can deliver this particular program in Australia. And also we have been the first aviation provider outside Europe that was granted the EASA Part 147 approval, which, if you are familiar in the industry, or even though you're just touching base for the first time with some of the aviation acronyms, this approval was granted from EASA to Aviation Australia. And this means that Aviation Australia can deliver at the same standard and the same quality that EASA requires for us to deliver this particular training. What's also unique to Aviation Australia? So the campus, it's based in Brisbane, and that's our headquarter. And of course, it's based at the Brisbane Airport. So this allows us to have our fully owned hangars. And of course, within our hangars, we have a wide range of different resources, including aircraft, helicopters, engine that I'll be showing you in a second. Something else very unique, which belongs and which we're very proud of at Aviation Australia, is the wide range of experience that our instructors possess, in the sense of we have a mix of Australian instructors as well as international instructors. And within these two categories, of course, you have instructors who are coming from a commercial or civil background, as well as instructors who have been in the defence, who have started their careers as early as 18 years old with the Australian Defence Air Force. Of course, being Aviation Australia, being based in Australia, we are also a CASA approved. So most of you would know that CASA is the Australian regulator, and Aviation Australia holds both the European approval and the Australian approval at the same time. Overall, as an organization that trains every single profession in the industry, our core is, of course, aircraft maintenance engineering, but we also deliver cabin crew courses. We deliver pilot courses with our third-party providers in different locations in Australia. And then we're very strong in what we call consultancy services. So, for example, if there is an organization in Australia or overseas that would like to start delivering proper aviation training, and needs structure and needs feedback in terms of how to obtain all the aviation approvals, Aviation Australia provides that particular services as well. And last but not least, of course, we have what we call our aviation study tours. So these are targeting both domestic and international markets, and especially for the international ones, because our campus, all our resources are fully owned. We can really customize everything in terms of requests for engineers, as well as pilots, as well as cabin crew. So I'm not sure how many of you in the room have been to Australia or Brisbane before this presentation, but Brisbane is based in Queensland, which is what we call the Sunshine State. So on an average, we have between 260 and 270 days per year of sun, which makes, we always say, makes the weather perfect for a great student experience. Brisbane itself, it's very close to the ocean. So you're looking at roughly 1 hour drive from the city to the Gold Coast, 1.5 to the Sunshine Coast. But what's so unique about Brisbane itself is it's a student-based city. So it's quite unique in the sense of the infrastructure, but it's also was modeled to create a unique international student experience. Something that I probably should have mentioned about myself before starting this presentation. I was an international student myself here in Brisbane, roughly 9 years ago now. And one of the greatest things that the city can offer is the combination of the work, study, and life balance as well. As you can see in here, I've actually taken the chance to put in the presentation a picture from one of our sporting events. So Brisbane is very big on sports, including rugby, soccer, the NRL, cricket as well, futsal, volleyball and basketball. So it's a city that can really offer to international students that very balanced approach into their experience. Now, in terms of Aviation Australia, at the beginning of the presentation, I was mentioning that we are based at the Brisbane Airport, and this is, of course, what we call the Aviation Australia headquarters. We do have other locations in Australia, and as you can see from the map, we actually have Cairns, we have Melbourne, we have Perth, we have Darwin. But the specific program that I will be talking about in this presentation, which targets, of course, overseas students, is only delivered in Brisbane. Now, if you can see the map of our campus, again, quite unique campus is based within the Brisbane Airport precinct. And as you can see, the blue section, it's what we call the corporate area, which is where we have the rotary hangar. The orange section is called the Technical Training Center, and this is the biggest hangar that we have. So as you can see, we have also a 737-800 simulator that we use for pilots who already hold their licenses. But from an engineering point of view, this is the biggest hangar where the majority of your practical component will happen. Outside, you actually see that there is a bit of a representation of an aircraft. As per today, we actually have 2 new aircraft sitting out there for our international students, and we have imported at Aviation Australia 2 MD-82s. The other side of the road, so the red building that you can see, is the Flight Safety Training Center, and that's a building that has been allocated just to cabin crew training. What's aside from the location, what's also so unique about the campus is the fact that here in Queensland, international students, when they are starting at a full-time course, they can access a 50% discount rate on transport. And as you can see, the Aviation Australia campus has actually 2 bus stops that are stopping our students literally in front of our hangars, which again, it's a quite unique structure that we have. Now, in terms of the Technical Training Center, so you will be able to find more detailed information on our YouTube channel if you want to have a look at our hangars. But in a snapshot, as you can see, I've cited the most common training aids that we have in there for you. So we have an S-28, which is pretty much that aircraft that you see with that blue tail. We have the King Air C-90, the Piper Navajo, the Cessna Citation, and then, of course, the MD-82s that are sitting outside of the hangar. Something that you probably have already realized from seeing this picture of the Technical Training Center is that this center is a Cat 30. So what does that mean for you when you study at Aviation Australia? This means that it's a live maintenance hangar. So it's nothing different compared to what happens in the industry. So the practical training that you will be undertaking at Aviation Australia is, of course, it's going to be an industry-based practical training, and it's an exact replica of what you will be doing out there in the industry after that you graduate from our course. The second hangar, it's called the rotary hangar. And again, if you're familiar in the industry, when we define rotary, we define, of course, helicopters. So we have an R-44, an S-76 as well. But most importantly, as you can see from the picture in the slide, we do have a wide range of different turbines. And of course, for example, the RB211 that you see in there, where we have our international students working on, that's going to be one of your major components into your practical training. Why it is so important again? It's because it's compulsory and it's part of your journey. And of course, Aviation Australia will deliver practical maintenance training to you within your 90 weeks of the course. Last but not least, the Flight Safety Training Center. Now, you won't spend so much time into this hangar because, again, this was developed for cabin crew training. But sometimes during your practical consolidation training, which is the stage where instructors are going to be showing you bits and pieces of what you can expect, you might be able to see the Flight Safety Training Center, which has different parts of different aircraft disassembled. So our cabin crew students can actually train on, for example, opening different sets of doors, We also have a wide body that we have re-engineered where we can simulate smoke, fire, and electrical alarms. And again, throughout your journey, you might be able to touch base some of your knowledge within this hangar as well. Now, the aircraft maintenance engineering program. So again, unique to Aviation Australia. The reason why I'm saying this, it's because this was a course that was actually developed by our team of engineers. And of course, it's the only course as per today in Australia that enables international students to come to Australia, and specifically to Brisbane, where students can actually undertake a qualification that was built against the Australian qualification framework. But more importantly, it was approved by the European Union Safety Agency. Now, what does this mean? This means that, of course, Aviation Australia today is the only option for this particular course, but also it means that Aviation Australia will enable you to complete your theoretical and your practical component within the same organization, which means that you don't need to look for any third-party provider outside of Aviation Australia to complete your practical requirement. I'm going to quickly touch base on EASA, just as I'm not 100% sure whether you guys are across of what EASA is. So in a nutshell, EASA was born by the individual European National Aviation Authority, who came all together and brought to the table the discussion of creating an harmonized structure where they could have led a common framework to develop a consistent approach to, for example, training, safety, and operations as well. And this is, of course, including but not limiting to these three main topics. As you can see from the numbers that I put on the slides, EASA, as per today, has working arrangements, agreements, technical cooperations all around the world. So what does this mean from an international student point of view who's undertaking a course which is EASA approved? It means, guys, that when you go out there looking for a job in the future in the industry, as long as you have an organization that can be, for example, a big airline, or that can be a smaller general aviation provider, or that can be a very specific maintenance repair organization, as long as they have an EASA approval, you will be able to continue your journey for your license. And of course, I will be touching base with more details throughout the presentation. But again, in a nutshell, the reason behind this slide was to give you that sense of EASA is really setting the pace for the aviation industry along different, of course, areas. And having an EASA approved qualification means that that qualification can really open up the doors of the world for you into your journey into the industry, of course. Now, in terms of our diploma, you guys have two options. So the first option, as you can see from the slide, is the mechanical one. And mechanical, as the word says, you're going to be touching base on jet engines, on fuel and pneumatic components. And then you have the avionics option. So when we talk about avionics in the industry, we mean the electrical components of the aircraft. And this is where you will be dealing again with everything that deals with the fundamentals of electronics in your theoretical component. But then you will actually be working onto all the avionics systems when you are in the hangar. Where the industry is going these days between mechanical and avionics engineers, you will see, especially if you've done some research before attending the presentation, that majority of the mechanical engineers are actually absorbing the surface level avionics tasks. So in the last few years, there's been a shift where a lot of our students have enrolled in the mechanical stream first, and then they've explored the avionics component as an option too, after completing their studies with us. Some more information about the course. So the course itself lasts for 90 weeks. So by rough calculation, you'll be looking at 18 to 20 months, depending, of course, on school breaks and public holidays here in Queensland. Something that is very important to understand is the course that we delivered is delivered under EASA standards. So when you jump into the course, there is a requirement for you to attend a minimum of 90% of your classes. And for every examination that you undertake, and I'm talking about the theoretical examination and about as well the practical assessments. So for theory, you will have to pass your examination at a minimum of 75% or above. And for your practical assessments, you will have to be marked as competent by our engineers. It's a bit of an intense course, 5 days a week. So you're looking at Monday to Thursday. So you usually start roughly at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, finishing between 2:30 p.m., depending, of course, on the module, depending on how much you have actually achieved during the day with your instructor. The exception is Friday, which is a shorter day. So you, again, start between 7 and 7:30, and by 12:30, you pretty much go home. Again, quite unique program also because of the intakes. So there are only 3 intakes per year, and they always happen within January, April, and September. As per this year, we have already exhausted all the options because we are already in October, but we have already opened classes for 2024. So if you are considering enrolling for next year, we do have dates. If you're looking at 2025, we're scheduling them as we speak. Okay, a bit more in detail. So when you're looking at the modules and the theory that you're going to be studying within the Diploma of Aircraft Maintenance Engineering, as you can see, the first 4 modules, they are the modules that we call the core fundamentals of the program. So you're going to start again from mathematics and physics, transitioning into what we call the fundamentals of electrical and electronics. And then from module 5 to 7, those are going to be the modules that are really going to be defining your ability to access the hangar for practical training. So in a nutshell, if you don't pass module 6 and 7, you won't be able to access the hangar and start your practical training. It's a sort of training that is suitable for 2 different types of students, either the school leavers. So this will be students who have completed minimum high school with a pass in mathematics and physics, or students who have completed a degree into a university with an aviation related stream, and that who want to return to the aviation more practical experience with Aviation Australia. So you will find in your classes a good mix of students who are aged between 18 and 21, and students who are a bit older within the 26 to 28 age bracket. Just finishing on the modules, as you can see from the slide, the red dots, of course, identify the avionics components, while the blue ones, they identify the mechanical one. And as you can see, if you choose avionics, of course, you have aircraft aerodynamics and propulsion, which do not belong to mechanical. Something else, which is something, well, again, it's something that our international students really like, is that, as you can see from the percentage on the slide, 45% of your course is going to be practical. So there is a more than a third of the course where you're not going to be in class anymore. You're physically going to go every morning into the hangar, and that's going to be your training practical environment. Practical training. So out of the 2,400 hours that you will be spending in total at Aviation Australia, 1,164 hours are going to be dedicated to practical training. So practical training is compulsory within your 90 weeks at Aviation Australia, and it is divided between what we call practical consolidation training and maintenance training. Now, the practical consolidation is, you can think about it as a bit of a hint into what you're going to be doing. So, for example, when you're going to be facing module 7, which is maintenance practices, the instructor should be giving you a bit of a hint of what that means. So it means that you will be able to walk physically in the hangar, and the instructor will show you, for example, what is the meaning of working on a wing box or in the metal workshop. Once you get into the second phase of the practical training, which is the maintenance training, that's again when you physically leave the class and you're going to be starting every morning into the hangar. So the hangar will be pretty much becoming your daily class. The maintenance training, of course, is divided into 2 different sort of streams. So there is stream 1, which is where you're going to be assessed against individual sort of based tasks, which is you're going to be working on, for example, a particular side part of the RB211 where the instructor has created a fault, and then you will have to allocate the fault, describe the fault, then go back to the instructor and say, okay, this is how I would fix it, then fix it. And then, of course, the instructor will sign you off on your logbook. And be signed off on your logbook. It's potentially one of the most important points of our training. So the logbook that you have, it's pretty much a record of every single practical task that you will be running in the hangar. And if you have successfully completed that task, the Aviation Australia allocated in engineer, which we call instructors for this case, they're going to be signing you off. So the signature means that you guys have been assessed as being competent to deliver that particular task. And if you go back to the very early stage of the presentation where I said that the hangar is a live environment, this means that the task that you're going to be delivering is the same task that you will be performing out there in the industry once you are employed. Now, in terms of entry requirements, just touching base quickly on this matter. So because, again, we start with the core fundamentals, the minimum entry requirements have to be completion of high school with a pass in mathematics and English. The second one regards the English proficiency level. So you actually have three different options. Option one is to complete an IELTS test, and you have to score a minimum of 5.5 with no subband below 5.0. And of course, this has to be an academic test, not a general IELTS test. The second option is, and it happens quite a lot with students who are coming from overseas. If you don't quite like the IELTS option, you can actually sit an equivalent examination test. And this, for example, can be a PTE or a TOEFL. The third option, which is what I always recommend to someone who is not 100% familiar, I guess, with Australia, is to actually enroll into an English school directly. And Aviation Australia partners with the majority of the big English schools in Brisbane as well as in Australia. And because they are our partners, they're going to be assessing your English proficiency level first. Then based on that, they will give you a recommendation as to how many weeks you need to attend that particular English level course. And then once you complete the course, you will actually have direct entry into our courses. So it means that you do not have to sit an examination, either an IELTS or an equivalent. In terms of the age, so there is no maximum sort of requirement. There is only a minimum. So as long as you have turned 17, you can enroll into our courses. The only difference for these cases is that Aviation Australia will put in place what we call the guardianship conditions. So until you turn 18, we will place you into a host family who will be taking care of you. And then as soon as you turn 18, you can either decide to move into an independent accommodation, or you can keep on staying with that same host family. Now, this is potentially the most important slide of the presentation. So we're talking about course outcomes. Now, when you enroll into the Diploma of Aircraft Maintenance Engineering at Aviation Australia, you are actually looking at having three different outcomes. So the first one, as you can see in the slide, is called the Diploma of Aircraft Maintenance Engineering. This was mapped against what we call the Australian qualification framework. And it means that you can use this diploma Australia-wide. If you want to go to university afterwards, you can get credit for what you have studied. Usually you would see that the majority of the universities, they would recognize a good portion of the diploma. If you're thinking about progressing your career again into the aircraft maintenance engineering space, an option where there is a university recognizing 1.5 years of what you studied with us, it's Central Queensland University. The second option, it's what we call the IASA Certificate of Recognition. Now, this is also what we call the industry outcome. So once you go out there in the industry looking for employment, the employer will be looking at the Certificate of Recognition, which pretty much is a document which states all your examinations and all your pass marks. Attached to the Certificate of Recognition, of course, there is also your logbook. So again, your logbook is a record of all the practical tasks that you have performed at Aviation Australia, signed by our engineers. And then, of course, when you are going out there in the industry looking for a job, for a role, for a position, having the COR and the logbook pretty much is putting the employer into a position where they just need to have a look at what you have done with Aviation Australia, and they can already put you on the job. And I'll give you an example. The RB211, which one of the most common turbines that we have in the industry, it's used by a wide range of different airlines, as well as it's pretty much in the hangar of a lot of maintenance repair organizations as well. So with you having completed tasks within that same turbine, it means that an employer knows already that you've been signed and certified by Aviation Australia engineers, which means that you can run the same task. Of course, before you get licensed, all these practical applications in the industry are always going to be supervised, but it means that the employer doesn't have to retrain you from scratch, which is a big advantage from their end. Now, a bit of a summary, I guess, for you to understand what the pathway is, either into the industry or to higher education. So when you study with Aviation Australia, which is an EASA-approved organization, then the next step is to continue. Of course, if you're interested into the licensing journey, is to continue with another EASA-approved organization, which in this case has to be a Part 145. Now, the Part 145 approval, in a nutshell, means that the organization has an approval to run all the maintenance repair operations for a particular set of aircraft, for example, or potentially for disassembled parts of aircraft. Now, the reason why you have to continue your journey, again, in case you're interested in becoming a licensed engineer, of course, into this organization, it's because by the EASA framework to get licensed, you have to do a minimum of 2 years of what we call on-the-job training. Now, this is the EASA-specific terminology. In reality, what on-the-job training means is that you can start working in the industry, of course, supervised, and within the 2 years where you have completed all the tasks necessary for you to apply for your first license, then those tasks have to be delivered within an EASA Part 145. Now, of course, when you are into that EASA Part 145 organization working, being supervised, you will also complete another journal of experience or logbook, which is pretty much the same one that you have already completed at Aviation Australia, but it will continue adding more tasks which will enable you to apply for your first license. Now, in case, of course, the license is not an option, then you can also choose the university pathways. And again, as I mentioned before, the university pathways allow you to get credit recognition for what you studied. And of course, there is the ramifications of the training are within the aircraft maintenance engineering space, as well as the aerospace and electrical or mechanical engineering as well. The enrollment process for the course, it's quite straightforward. So the option that you have in that case, for example, Mohammed is our point of reference. We do engage with international agents for the sake of assisting all of our international students to come to Aviation Australia. The reason why we do that is because our agents help us out in market to also set out the right expectation to our future students. And what's important for all of our international students is, of course, to understand that receiving a letter of offer from Aviation Australia, and then, of course, receiving a confirmation of enrollment, and then getting a visa to study and to come here in Brisbane also requires commitment. Because the diploma that we created, of course, is a diploma that is creating the future workforce for the aircraft maintenance engineering body in the industry. And the reason behind this course to be highly, I'm going to say, demanding and technical, it's because these are the same dynamics that you guys will find out there in the industry. So Aviation Australia will really become almost like your preparation school for you then to set up the right pace for once you actually become a professional in the industry. So just jumping back quickly on the enrollment process, as you can see, it's very simple. You can contact Mohammed and his team. The enrollment process is quite straightforward in the sense of it's an online application form. What's important is to remember, of course, to certify all your documents, but again, you will get support into that. And Aviation Australia will guide you step by step after that you have completed the enrollment process, in the sense of we have an admission and a student services teams, and they will be also touching base with you, making sure that, of course, you are on the right track in getting to Australia, as well as if you need any extra support, for example, with accommodation. Okay, so this was pretty much the end of the presentation. I tried to keep it, I guess, quite dynamic, if I can say that, Mohammed. If everything is still okay, I guess I'll keep this slide open, and then if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them from the audience.
Simone, yeah, that's really good. Let's see whether there's anyone from the audience have any questions.
Simone, we have one question from a student. Hello?
Yes, I can hear. There is a bit of echo.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. So one of the students asked that regarding the high school as an entry level, do you mean it by A level?
Yes, so the entry level has to be the equivalent of your year 12 in the Maldives. So as long as you have completed your last year of high school in the Maldives and you have a certificate that proves two things. First of all, your completion of your high school journey, as well as your passes in mathematics and physics, that would meet the minimum entry requirements for Aviation Australia.
Okay, thank you so much. Simone, we do not have any questions at the moment.
Yes, okay. Not a problem. So maybe something else that I can suggest before closing the presentation from my end is that if you guys have any sort of questions, after the presentation, once you start, I guess, reviewing the diploma itself, Mohammed and his team will be there to support you. And of course, please do not hesitate to sort of visit our YouTube channel, because that's where you see all the entirety of our hangars. And of course, we look forward to hearing from you in the future in case you are interested in embarking onto the journey of an aviation career.